Hello, all. It's time for books 7 and 8 of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Um, if you remember, the last chapter ended with Hector basically telling his wife, I'm not going to stay. I have to go fight. I'm a brave man. I'm a manly man. I must go fight and die for my country. Um, at least his son will know that he wasn't a coward, that sort of thing. He's brave, but after having kids, I think I'd rather choose hang out with my kids. Anyway, so book 7. As soon as both men had resumed their posts, the Trojans took courage and pressed forward. At their unexpected counterattack, the Greeks drew back. From the heights of Mount Olympus, where the weary Athena had retired, she saw what was happening. She swiftly took off for Troy and had barely set foot on earth when she met Apollo. Athena, why have you flown down from Olympus once again? Are you keen to see Troy sacked? Listen to me. Too much blood has been shed. Let us unite and put an end to this massacre. They will fight again, to be sure, but it is enough for today. Yes, Apollo, replied the goddess. I also feel that it is enough for today. But how can we stop the men fighting? There is a way. Let us make Hector challenge one of the Greek princes to a duel. That way the battle will cease. And it has an image. Athena and Apollo talk of a way to stop the fighting. The two children of Zeus agreed and induced Helenus to speak the following words to his brother Hector. Hear me, Hector. I don't know what has come over me, but I feel certain that you shall not die today. Have our men sit down and order them to stop fighting. Then go forward alone and challenge a Greek to a duel. Hector agreed. Pacing up and down in front of his troops, he commanded the men to cease fighting and sit down on the ground. Seeing the Trojans laying down their arms and sit in orderly ranks, Agamemnon immediately gave the same order to the Greeks. A great silence fell where only a short while earlier battle had raged. Everyone was now still where there had been a frenzied turmoil of men and chariots. Hector stepped forward and stood between the two armies. Hear me all! The outcome of this war is victory or death. I am here to challenge any Greek who is prepared to fight me. This is my proposal, and may Zeus be my witness. The victor will strip the other of his arms, but must send the corpse back so that he may be given a warrior's burial. Come now, who will accept my challenge? A long silence followed these words. Hector was a great warrior, and he fought to defend his country. No Greek was then willing to take up such a challenge. The long, embarrassed silence lasted till old Nestor exclaimed, Oh, shame on you Greeks! Can it be that not one of you will step forward? If I were young, I would take on Hector. At the old man's words, 9 Greek princes stood up, their faces red with shame. They were Agamemnon, Diomedes, Aias, son of Oileus, Telamonian Aias, Admenius, Meriones, Odysseus, Eurypylus, and Thoas, all ready for the duel. A draw was to pick Hector's opponent. Fate chose Telamonian Aias, the tallest and strongest of the Greeks. When Hector saw him advancing, clans and broad, with his vast shield, wielding his spear and with a threatening sneer on his face. That's my spot, making that. He felt nervous, but to have withdrawn then would have meant eternal shame for him. So he stood firm and waited. Hector, shouted Aias, stopping at some distance. You see that although Achilles is not among us today, we can still fight. You go first and begin the duel. So be it, Aias, and let it be an open fight. As he spoke, Hector launched his spear, which planted itself into Aias' shield with a heavy thud. Aias retaliated by piercing Hector's shield with his spear. Having no more spears, the two heroes began to hurl great boulders at each other. Struck and wounded in the neck, Hector staggered to his knees, but Apollo quickly helped him up again. Drawing their swords, the rivals closed in on each other and would have fought relentlessly until death, had not 2 heralds, a Greek and a Trojan, came up and separated them. Enough, valiant warriors, they said. Stop the fighting. You are both brave and both loved by Zeus. Enough, it is nearly dark. So be it, Aias, said Hector. We have struck each other many blows. Let us now exchange gifts, so that it may be said by all, these two have fought each other fiercely, but they have parted friends. With this he handed his opponent his sword, and received Aias' valuable purple belt. So ended the duel. There was no more fighting on that day. The remaining hours before sunset were devoted to the sad task of gathering and burying with all the honors the warriors who had fallen in combat. Book 8. Another day began. On Mount Olympus, Zeus summoned all the gods to a conference. His face was somber. Listen to me all, and listen well. I shall tell you what I think, and let none of you contradict me. What is happening in Troy is worrying and annoying me. It must end. I won't have any of you going down to help either the Greeks or the Trojans. I have spoken many times before, but you have not taken notice. Well, if I see any of you, whoever it is, flying down to earth to meddle in this wretched war, I shall strike him with my lightning. Then you will know the wrath of Zeus." With this, Zeus mounted his chariot and flew off to Mount Ida, from where he could survey the battlefield. Impressed, the gods dared not move and remained on Olympus, silent and thoughtful. Meanwhile, at sunrise, Greeks and Trojans had taken up their arms again and were preparing for another battle. Soon the converging forces met, and the same bloody scenes repeated themselves. More dead, more suffering, more heroes fell to the ground and were stripped of their arms. The fight lasted through the morning, until at last Zeus brought out the scales of fortune. He placed the Greeks' fate on one plate and the Trojans' fate on the other. The latter felt heavier, which meant that fortune was on the Trojans' side. Zeus immediately sent a flash of lightning down among the Greek troops, who, terrified by the deafening blast, scattered in all directions, with the enemy following at their heels. During the retreat, old Nestor alone lingered behind, and would have been easy prey for the Trojans but for Diomedes, who noticed him. He steered his chariot round, and whipping the horses, drove to his rescue. "Where are you running to, Greeks?" he shouted as he rode. "Are you fleeing too, Odysseus?
One moment.
Won't you come..." Oh, Siri, why are you...
I found this on...
Oh, my Siri turned on. Sorry about that. Siri lost me there. "Where are you running to, Greeks?" he shouted as he rode. "Are you fleeing too, Odysseus? Won't you come and help me rescue Nestor?" His words were lost in the turmoil, and alone, he drew up to the old man, leapt off the chariot, and helped Nestor onto it. "We shall not flee, Nestor. Though you are old, I shall take you to battle, and Hector will see who we are. Sthenelus," he ordered his faithful charioteer, "head straight for Hector." So in the general flight, Diomedes returned alone to the attack, aiming his spear at Hector's heart. He missed, but instead struck the Trojan hero's charioteer. Zeus then intervened once more, and with a terrific thunderclap, he flashed a dazzling bolt to earth right in front of Diomedes' chariot. The frightened horses neighed and reared, and Nestor shouted, "Ah, Diomedes! I fear this is a sign from the gods! Zeus is against us! Let us withdraw!" "I shall not withdraw. Let no one say that I was afraid." "Indeed, no one who knows you shall ever dare to say that, Diomedes," replied Nestor worriedly. "But do not defy the wrath of Zeus again." Finally, the chariot was steered around in the dust and driven back to the Greek camp, while the Trojans, taking courage, pressed forward with a terrific roar, led by Hector, who urged them from his chariot. "Trojans, allies, friends! Yesterday fortune was not on our side, but today we shall win. If our fighting spirit holds, today we shall invade the Greek camp and end the war. Go! Do not linger! As Diomedes flees, we shall go after him. Forward!" They all followed him, and not one Greek warrior dared to turn around and face them. It was indeed a terrible downfall. Never had the Greeks fled in this manner before. One by one, or in disorderly groups, they scrambled across the trench which protected their camp and took refuge behind the wall that surrounded it. The Trojans kept at their heels relentlessly, bombarding them with arrows and spears. In short, not one Greek remained outside the wall. It was a strong and well-built wall with solid ramparts that protected the Greek camp, the tents, the headquarters, and the ships, which were nearly all dry-docked along the shore. The ships were for the Greeks and an indispensable element in the war, because if they were lost, they could not get weapons and war supply reinforcements. But losing the ships would mean an even greater disaster. Without the ships, how could they sail back to their homeland? Intent as they were to reach the wall, the Trojans hadn't looked at the sky. They hadn't realized the sun had completed its course and was setting. When the shadows of night fell with a long gust of wind, Hector was taken aback and shocked. He turned to the sea, reddened by sunset. Stopping in his tracks, he halted his troops and shouted, "Enough, brothers! Stop here! I hope to assail the enemy's ships, but soon it will be dark. We must respect the night and stop fighting. It does not matter," he added. "This time we shall not withdraw. We shall not return to the city. We shall not leave this ground that we have conquered. Send a messenger to tell our wives and friends that the army will stay on the field. The Greeks," he went on, pointing at the wall, "cannot escape us. Tomorrow at dawn we shall break through their defenses and set fire to their ships. When they have lost their means of retreat, they will also lose heart to fight. You will see. Nobody in the world will ever dare to make war on Troy. Let us pitch camp and light huge fires. From those fires we shall take the flames which tomorrow will burn down the enemy's ships." It's got a picture. Hector orders his men to pitch camp and light fires. They will spend the night in conquered land instead of going back into the city. I realize it's kind of hard to see there. Yeah, there you have it. Even though Zeus told everybody else not to interfere, he kind of interfered himself. Interesting.